Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, everybody.
We are learning Mishna Megillah, Parak Aleph, Chapter 1, Mishna Beis, Mishna 2. So yesterday's Mishnah mentioned the different dates that the Megillah could be read, and now the Mishnah is going to explain to us how all these would manifest. Ketzad, how is this? So we're going to go through every day of the week now, starting from Monday, and we're seeing how it would all fall, or how it all fall out. If let's say the 14th of Adar comes out on a Monday, Kafarim va'ayares gadaylos karin boy bayayim. The villages and the big cities, meaning the unwalled cities, including the villages, karin boy bayayim, will read on that day, on Monday the 14th. And the ones surrounded by a wall will read the next day. Now, villagers are allowed to read the Megillah before the 14th of Adar only when the 14th itself does not fall on a day of assembly. When it does, there is no reason for them to read earlier since they will travel to the town anyway on the 14th. The point being that they're coming anyway. It's a Monday. Mondays they come in anyway, whether it be because of the reading of the Torah, whether it be in order to be able to go to the Batei Dinim, to go to the rabbinical courts. They're coming in anyway. Then already we say that they read it that day. Will it possibly create some issues about being able to be available to supply the food for the people in the big cities? It's possible, but at the end of the day, once the whole point was that they shouldn't have to make a special trip to come in for the reading of the Megillah, and if they're coming in anyway, so therefore it's not an issue. Next. If let's say the 14th fell out on a Tuesday or a Wednesday, then we say the villagers will read the Megillah earlier on the day of gathering, on the day they come into the big city, and that day of the week would be in this case Monday, right? If the 14th falls out of the Tuesday or a Wednesday, then the Yom HaKnisa preceding that is going to be the Monday before, and that date will be either it'll either be the 13th or the 12th of Adar when they're reading it. Okay, and the big cities are going to read it that day, the day of the 14th. And the one that are surrounded by walls are going to read on the 15th. Okay, now. Okay, so that's the case if let's say it falls out on a Tuesday or a Wednesday. Next, if let's say the 14th fell out on a Thursday, the villages and the big cities will read on that day itself. It's Thursday. It's they're coming in anyway, and therefore they're going to read the Megillah on the 14th on Thursday. And the ones surrounded by a wall will read it the next day, which would be for them Friday. Now, here's where things get a little bit more complicated, a little different than usual. Erev Shabbos. If the 14th of Adar falls out on a Friday, so Kafara Makdim Liyam HaKnisa, the villages will read the Megillah earlier on the day of gathering, which is which day? Thursday, right? The Thursday before, the villages would, when they're coming in, they would be able to read the Megillah then. Now, Bayaris Gadailos, the big cities, unwalled, Umukafais Chaima, and walled cities, Kairin Bayayim, are going to read it on that day itself. They're both going to read it on the 14th, on Friday. The 15th is Shabbos, right? For the walled cities. The 15th will be Shabbos, right? You can't read the Megillah on Shabbos. You can't read because we're afraid. Let's read. Okay, let me tell you from the notes how this explained. The sages ruled that the Megillah should not be read on Shabbos because they fear that a person might carry a Megillah through the street, which is biblically prohibited on Shabbos. Therefore, when the 15th of Adar is a Shabbos, people who live in walled cities may not read the Megillah on that day, whether they read it the previous day, Friday the 14th. Okay, now. How about that? So it comes out. In this case, the 15th is Shabbos. So you can't say you can't read on Shabbos. So you read on the 14th. Maybe you should read on Sunday the 16th. Do it a day later. The reading is not postponed until Sunday because the mitzvah cannot be fulfilled after the 15th. This is derived from the verse, V'lo yavar, and the shot may not pass, which teaches that the reading of the Megillah may not pass beyond the dates mentioned, the 14th and the 15th of Adar. It could be maybe earlier, but it can't be later. And therefore, when the 15th comes out on Shabbos and they can't read the Megillah on Shabbos, they're going to have to read it on the 14th. Now, when the 15th falls on a Shabbos, although the residents of walled cities do not read the Megillah on that day, they must read the other Torah passages and prayers that are obligatory on Purim. Meaning, the reading of the Torah, the reading of Amalek, is going to be done on Shabbos. Okay? They're going to say Al Hanisim on Shabbos. There is a dispute regarding the Purim feast, the Purim Suda. Some places can require the feast to be held on Sunday. The Suda will be on the 16th. The Megillah reading is not going to be on a Sunday, but the Suda would be on a Sunday. And others require it to be held on Friday. And others say you do it on Friday. You don't do it on Shabbos. You're going to do it either according to some on Sunday or some on Friday, which is the day they're reading the Megillah. The mitzvah of giving to the poor matanas of Yainim, when is that? That is performed on the same day as the Megillah reading, which is Friday. Okay, that goes together with the Megillah reading. And the mitzvah of sending gifts to food, Mishlach Manos, is performed on the day of the Purim feast, which is either Friday or Sunday. Okay, so that is what happens when Purim, when the 15th, what we call Shushan Purim, falls out on Shabbos. The Mishna says the Megillah is read on the 14th. The rest of the mitzvahs of Purim are what we just went through right now. So that's the case of Chaliyos Erev Shabbos when the 14th falls out on a Friday. Now, Chaliyos B'Shabbos. What if the 14th falls out on Shabbos? Now, that doesn't happen to us with a calendar now. With the established calendar that we have, Purim, there's our 14th Purim, meaning Purim outside of a walled city, does not fall out on Shabbos. The times of the Mishnah, when they were still establishing the new month based on witnesses, then it could fall out on Shabbos. So Chaliyos B'Shabbos, the 14th falls out on Shabbos. Kefarim v'ayores gadolos makdimin v'karin liyam kanisa. Both the villages and the large cities are going to read the Megillah earlier and do it on the Yom HaKnisa. They're going to do it on the day of the gathering. That means they're going to do it on Thursday. That means those who would typically read on the 14th, not only the villages, even the unwalled cities that would typically read on the 14th, but they can't this year because it's Shabbos, they're going to go back to Thursday. They're going to go back to the Yom HaKnisa. Okay? Now, what's the explanation to that? Before we finish the next three words. When the Megillah cannot be read on the 14th because it is Shabbos, it is read on the previous Thursday. Rather than being read on Friday, which is one day before the regular date, it is read 2 days earlier. Meaning the question is, all right, you can't read it on Shabbos. Why are you going back to Thursday? Why not doing it on Friday? The reason is that once a reading date must be moved, it should be moved to the previous day of assembly, which in this case is Thursday. Okay, you ready pushing it back? You ready moving it from its regular time? Do it on the Yom HaKnisa, do it when everybody gathers together. Now, however, the Mishnah concludes and says, now the walled cities, when are they going to go ahead and what are they going to read? They're going to read L'mocher. They're going to read the next day. They're going to read on Friday, right? No, they're going to read on Sunday, sorry. The 14th came in on Shabbos, so the 15th is on Sunday. They're going to go ahead and they're going to read on Sunday, which is the 15th. So it comes out that the unwalled cities, when the 14th falls out on Shabbos, are going to read Thursday, 2 days earlier on the 12th. The walled cities can read on the 15th, which is Sunday. No big deal. Okay. Now, the note that I was reading before, I just want to continue reading it. However, they're continuing with this note. However, when the 15th falls on a Shabbos and the residents of a walled cities must read the Megillah earlier, they read it on Friday, not on Thursday. Meaning we just said the unwalled cities who can't read on Shabbos, they go back to the Yom HaKnisa. They go back to the day when everybody assembles together on Thursday. But we said before that if the 15th falls out on Shabbos, right,
No.
Then when do the walled cities read? They can't read on Shabbos. When do they read? On Friday. They don't read on Thursday. We don't tell them to go back to the Yom HaKnisa, the gathering day. We let them read on Friday. What's the difference? This is because the residents of unwalled towns read the Megillah that Friday, right? Because that was the case where the 14th was Friday, 15th was Shabbos. If the 14th is Friday, the unwalled cities read the Megillah on Friday. So what do you want to say? You want to say, but the walled cities, when the 15th is on Shabbos, they can't read that day. If they can't read that day, then we say if it's moved back to a Yom HaKnisa, to a Thursday, right? The problem is, it's unacceptable for the residents of walled cities to read the Megillah earlier than the residents of the unwalled towns. You follow? What's happening is that when the 15th falls out on Shabbos, right? If we're going to go ahead and say go back to Thursday, because we have this rule that once it's moved, we move back to a day when everybody assembles. That's going to come out that the unwalled cities are reading on Friday because it's the 14th. The walled cities are going to be reading on Thursday, which is earlier than that. That comes out the unwalled cities are reading earlier than the unwalled. The walled cities are reading earlier than the unwalled cities. That can't be. That can't be. That's just not the way. That can't be. That's not the way. That's completely out of the way things are meant to be. And therefore we say, okay, when the 15th comes out on Shabbos, you don't go back to the Yom HaKnisa. You don't go back to Thursday, the day of assembly. You go back to Friday. Then the last case brought down is Chal Yos Achara Shabbos. The 14th falls out on Sunday. Kafarim Akdim Yom HaKnisa. The villages go back to the day of gathering. They go back to the Thursday before. So count it. If Sunday is the 14th, then Thursday comes out to be the 11th. This is the case of 11. The other cases before, we had day 12, we had day 13. This is the only case for day 11, where the Kfarim, where the villages will be reading earlier because of the day of gathering, which is a Thursday before. The big cities read it that day, 14th after Shabbos, no problem reading it that day. And the walled cities read it the next day on Monday, which is the 15th. So that's how, depending on what day, this is the whole calculation, that depending on which day the 14th falls out, that'll make the difference as to when the villages read. It'll make a difference as to when they can read, and it can make a difference to when the walled cities can read. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Rabbi. Now, what about all
You're
these
in a